Jon Stewart has called the legacy media disgusting, and Joe Rogan has proven that individual broadcasters can become more powerful than the biggest blue church propagandist organisations. What does this mean for old media versus new possibilities for truth? Hello there, you 4.67 million glorious incarnations of the limitless oneness temporarily held here in form before once again rejoining the great wonder. While we're here, let us embark together on a journey of powerful truth, including, where possible, every single one of us. Now, what did you think when Jon Stewart said that Newsweek were disgusting? I was kind of into it. I like Jon Stewart, and I feel like Jon Stewart's an interesting figure because he's so strongly identified with the left because of his time on The Daily Show, but he's got the nuts, the stones, the balls to speak out against the kind of entrenchment corruption that is evident in groups, organisations and platforms conventionally associated with his old alliances. I think this is well important because we need to create new alliances. We need to create new conversations. We can't just stay hunkered down in those old camps. We can't afford to anymore. New conversations have to happen. Now, of course, the whole thing hinges upon him having a chat on a podcast where he said the bankers in one of the Harry Potter movies looked very Jewish. And like, I saw the clip and it looked like he was kind of mucking around. Now, Newsweek reported that as being Jon Stewart calls J.K. Rowling anti-Semitic. You can see that the model that's being used there is, what is the worst we could make this? How could we inflate this? How could we conflate this? How could we get two figures and turn them against one another, even though that's not what's being said? Because if you think about it, J.K. Rowling wrote a book, then films were made about that book, then characters and puppets were designed and all sorts of things happened, and masks and latex and prosthetics. It's not like J.K. Rowling went, here's my anti-Semitic agenda. Now, J.K. Rowling, she cops a lot of flack, let's face it, in all sorts of places and territories that I do not feel qualified or inclined to wander into. But what you can say for certain is that there are platforms that enjoy creating conflagration and conflict unnecessarily. When you look at the world at the moment, do you think what we need now is more opportunities for us to start hating one another, for people to in fact construct opportunities for arguments when really there weren't one? Because I don't. I think the exact opposite. Now, is there a connection between this story and this distrust and the growing power of Joe Rogan and figures like him? Although let's accept that Joe Rogan is a unique outlier with a unique set of criteria and assets, but surely his success in part is due to his transparency and authenticity. Let's have a look at this whole issue. Former US talk show host Jon Stewart says comments he made about the Harry Potter films were meant to be light-hearted, and he was not accusing author J.K. Rowling of anti-Semitism. Just the idea that something could be light-hearted and a bit of a laugh, doesn't that feel like a relief to you in some way? The idea that we can have a bit of a banter and a bit of a laugh, that Jon Stewart can make light comments about something that is serious, but not everything, because it's serious, has to be conducted at a serrated, jagged knife edge of us attacking one another, trying to tear strips off one another. And the fact that the nuance was removed. I worked once with the great documentary maker Albert Maysles, and he said tyranny is the deliberate removal of nuance. We are tyrannized like no time in history through propaganda. Nuance has been removed continually. Oh, Jon Stewart made a bit of a light-hearted joke about like the bankers down at the Hogwarts Bank, or whatever the hell it's called. You know, oh, well, what he's sort of trying to say then is that J.K. Rowling, who's got that on her plate, is anti-Semite. Oh, no, I don't think he was. Yeah, but if he was, that would be a better story, so let's just say that. The comedian said news outlets had piled into this ridiculously out of context nonsense, and he did not want the franchise censored in any way. It comes after a clip emerged of Stewart discussing scenes from the film set in the magical bank of Gringotts run by goblins on the podcast The Problem with Jon Stewart. In it, Stewart made comparisons between caricatures from anti-Semitic literature and the folks that run the bank. A while ago, I suppose, that would have been something that could have been discussed humorously, particularly by people that are invested in the identities that are being discussed. Now, it seems that if you do something like that, you risk it being conflated, inflated, blown up, because we live in a climate that loves conflict. All the time you see these little articles about how social media is causing these echo chambers and for us to be more divided. Then people like Newsweek, who I thought are meant to be like a proper legit organisation, they leap into that with absolute relish.
My name is Jon Stewart. I do not think J.K. Rowling is anti-Semitic. I did not accuse her of being anti-Semitic. I do not think that the Harry Potter movies are anti-Semitic. I really love the Harry Potter movies, probably too much for a gentleman of my considerable age. So I would just like to say that none of that is true, and not a reasonable person could not have looked at that conversation and not found it lighthearted.
Because we're not talking about reasonable people, we're talking about agenda-led propaganda. I know the people that are doing it don't think that what they're doing is agenda-led propaganda, but they are, as I've cited many times on our channel. When Chomsky spoke to Andrew Marr, and Andrew Marr went, well, I'm working for the BBC. I've not been trained and told what I can ask and what I can't ask. And Chomsky said, if that hadn't happened to you, you wouldn't be sat in that chair. By the time you've been through those schools and that university, you just automatically do that. You've been conditioned, you've been programmed. It doesn't make you a bad person, but it does mean that you will be able to work at Newsweek.
So let me say this instead to Newsweek. Your business model is fucking arson. And not the good kind, not the good kind of arson where they light stuff and control it to prevent forest fires in the future. The kind of arson where you're on the mountain and you've got fucking 5 minutes and you don't know where the dogs are. Like, that's your business model. And now all the shitheads pile into this ridiculously out of context nonsense.
What I feel we want to create on our channel is a space that is antithetical to that, where whatever you believe, you can come here and communicate and learn from one another in a way that is non-judgmental, that isn't about how can we make this as bad as possible, as ugly as possible. The point of what we do is to try to create transparent communication, open dialogue, to do the opposite of what Newsweek are doing. And evidently this stuff's working because our channel, thanks to you, is doing well. And Joe Rogan, who sits at the pinnacle of these types of channels and broadcast initiatives, is actually now more powerful than Tucker Carlson or The Five or Hannity or Fox Primetime or Rachel Maddow or MSNBC or CNN Primetime. This is what it says. Analytics pulled from Spotify and Nielsen Holdings show that the Joe Rogan Experience podcast draws in 11 million viewers per show on average. So thankfully, the way that we consume and receive information is changing. And the reason that it's changing is the media, whose name suggests ought be a conduit for information from powerful establishments, elites, groups, systems of organizations, bureaucracies, to we, the people, have instead become machines for creating dumb, abstracted consensus, compliance, docility. And what I feel we can create in this new media landscape is an honest discourse, an honest conversation that admits fallibility, that has room for nuance and jokes, creates the opportunity for learning and people to come together. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean that. Oh, that was a mistake. I was wrong about that. I was just trying to work it out. You know, we're human beings. What are they trying to make of us? They are machines that are trying to make us more machine-like, whether deliberately or not, or whether it's because of objectives in a boardroom or an agenda that really lives on a spreadsheet, or because of something more nefarious. We don't know, and it's pointless to speculate. All we can say is that we will communicate with you openly, honestly, lovingly, and hopefully sometimes humorously. We have to look at figures like Joe Rogan and Jon Stewart as examples of new forms of conversation that don't live within the old lines or the old boundaries of this is left, this is right, because it seems to me more and more that all of those political interests care only about the maintenance of power and the advancement of their own interests, and that we need a radical review, if not revolution, in the way that we receive information and the way that we communicate. And we hope that we can be a small part of that, and we only can be because of you. So thank you very much for watching this channel and supporting it. And please let us know what you think about this story, what you think about the mainstream media. Do you consume it anymore? Where do you get your information from? Let me know in the comments below. Give me a thumbs up if you enjoyed this video. Share it around. If you enjoyed this video, have a look at this one. It's on a similar theme. Please have a look at my side channel, Awakening, as well, because one thing we can all do and have to do is look after our mental and spiritual health so that we can exist in this peculiar environment. If you want to join my mailing list, it's one click away so we can stay in constant communication. There's all sorts of other stuff I do, live work. You can come and see me. Thank you very much for watching. Stay free.